The second half of that sentence is absolutely correct. The first piece is a little bit funny, and we'll talk about that, but nature-based solutions to flooding is extremely important, but is also very tough to do to really take control of the entire issue. And we call this issue in the business the green infrastructure versus the gray infrastructure. The green infrastructure is what you'll see here I call green stormwater infrastructure. And I'll explain what that means. And the gray is for most of you who are in communities that do not have combined sewers, and I'll explain that in a minute. What you need to do is have storm flood relief sewers to relieve sewers or culverts or creeks, and so you can have that balance. And then there's also this thing called CSOs, combined sewer overflows, and that's 700 and some cities in the U.S. have only one sewer down their street, and that sewer is for everything. So it's for home sanitary waste as well as stormwater. And dealing with those, which I'll talk about in a minute, is very different from dealing with flooding. So this is an outfall. We call this T14, T for Tacony Creek, and that's the creek in front of you. It's and this is a storm sewer this is a combined sewer overflow point that right now is empty, and it's empty because it's not raining. When it's raining, this thing can fill up about 2/3 to 3/4 in height and overwhelm this creek. And we have 164 of these in Philadelphia. And obviously, since it's a combined sewer, you're getting sewage coming in, not only just the rampant amount of water that's coming down, you also have sewage coming down and creating nuisance pollution as well as flooding issues. And this is what a combined sewer looks like. This is a combined sewer overflow point when it's not raining. That's why that man is able to stand where he is. That is all waste from some small portion of New York City, and the water is coming down and it's going into dropping into this tunnel that is a square pipe that you can see looking into the center of the picture. And this wastewater is being sent directly to the wastewater treatment plant for treatment. When it rains, this entire room will fill up with water. And on the left-hand side, there are some, you can't really tell really well, but these are gates that will open up because of the pressure of the water and allow the water to go out into the river. And the reason they do that is because we haven't built the systems in many cities around the US and around the world large enough to be able to take all the waste, all the storm water. We've done all the wastewater, but we can't do all the stormwater. Stormwater is mixing with the wastewater. If you take a gallon of wastewater and you add a gallon of stormwater, class, what do you get?
2 gallons.
You get 2 gallons of wastewater. Right, exactly. So it's a problem. It's a problem, and it remains one of those elusive problems in the U.S. for improving water quality in our rivers and streams. Okay. What's being done all over in the water business is this integrated planning, watershed-wide, long-term strategies to take all the different regulation requirements, whether the Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act. You don't have to know what all these things are, but you add to that the issues of flooding, the issues of climate change. Sea level rise becomes really important because as sea levels rise, it's putting more pressure on the back end of the overflow points, and that is limiting how much waste and stormwater can get out into the river, which may sound like a good thing, but it has to go somewhere, and it backs up into people's basements. So I'm going to talk to you about a lot about Philadelphia and Philadelphia's Green Cities Clean Waters program. And this is I like this shot because it shows at least a piece of the green infrastructure portion of the city living very nicely and well with the downtown area. Okay. So and our goal both at Philly Water and now at the Water Center is very much about updating U.S. water practices and policies so that we're not just building sewers and pipes and doing what's our core mission, which is public health and protecting the environment. But we want to do this in a way that also encourages innovation, growth, resiliency, sustainability, equity, and trust. And what that all means is that taking some of the money that would be spent on gray infrastructure and bringing it up to the surface and putting in green infrastructure that can provide many benefits. And it's through this innovation and leadership, very much folks like yourselves, but looking to shape the culture and the direction of the water sector away from fast-moving waters wasted as quickly as possible into a river, or the opposite happening when you don't have those conveyance avenues and flooding occurring, to making the water business more looking at the future sustainability and equity of our cities. And I'll pause after this to see if there are any questions so far, but the issues really are, how do you take a water utility and the issues of flooding and the money that is behind those issues, because the water utilities basically are your largest capital expenditures in any city. How do you take that money, and how do you take any money that's given to you for flooding, either before or after a flooding event, and put it in a way and put policies together so you get desired outcomes for the community? And this picture is an elementary school. You don't see any green infrastructure, but it's all there. This was an asphalt top schoolyard, and now has green infrastructure, of course, a porous play field, plus some greenery that's not shown in this picture. So I'll stop right there for a moment and see if there's any question. Okay, I'll keep going. I love this picture. This is Copenhagen, and these are the harbor baths. And you might wonder, like, why would anybody swim in the water in a harbor in Copenhagen when it's the water is kind of cold there. I don't know what the temperature is, but these are hardy souls that are out there. And but they have a whole different sense. They have a whole different feel for the environment and what they want and what they expect. And they have some of the highest priced water in the world. And the reason for that is because they want to have high quality rivers and streams, access, aesthetics, and they don't want any kind of pollution in their water if they can prevent it. That is great, and that provides, and when you can do that, that provides the kind of funding you need to do green infrastructure and building these wonderful swimming pools in a harbor. When it's not, when you don't have the money, your level of service goes down, and the level of service and the expectations of the communities go down. So the question is if you use green infrastructure, can you start to make a change in how people feel about the environment, and also impact and make improvements to the community and the environment? So GSI, again, is green stormwater infrastructure. It's the same as GI, which is green infrastructure, and a whole other different sets of terms. And this is the city of Philadelphia's progress so far. And just explain that when you're talking about green infrastructure, there's really three different ways that it can be done. One is you can go to the roads and the sidewalks and parks, anything else that's owned by the public. And you can do green infrastructure there that is completely done through government and government demonstrations. And for Philadelphia, there are 900 there are over 900 stormwater management practices. That's what SMPS, sorry about that, stands for. And they're very expensive because it's government. It's done. We don't really know how to take rainwater and let it infiltrate back into the ground very well in our big cities. So it turns out to be about $400,000 to $500,000 per what we call a green acre, which is an acre of land that's managed for green infrastructure. The other half is private property, and we have two different elements there. One is what we're calling incentivized retrofits, and those are convincing a private landowner to put green infrastructure in, and in exchange, they'll get a large credit on their stormwater bill because we have a stormwater utility in Philadelphia. We've been, we find that there's not enough benefit in the credit, so we have to give grants. So we give grants to landowners to do the right thing on their property instead of taking a 50-acre industrial site and having sheet flow of the water going all into the street and then causing flooding and overflows and whatever may be. We incentivize them to manage stormwater on their own site. And then we have and that's pretty cool because I'll show you in a minute that that's coming in about $125,000 per green acre. So it's a lot less expensive. It's done privately. It's larger sites. They don't have the same kind of problems you have doing retrofits on a public street. The last part is redevelopment. So, and I encourage this for everyone to make sure that your city, town has very stringent requirements for new development. And for a city like Philadelphia, we're finding about 0.4% of the city is being redeveloped each year. That means 0.4% of the impervious cover, because we're all built up in our city. So 0.4%, which is a lot of acres of our impervious land, is being rebuilt, and we require that they manage the first inch and a half of rainfall. And we have 2,700 of those projects, and those projects don't cost the ratepayer, the city, anything, because they're covered by and they're paid for by the developer. Any questions so far?
How did you get the city to pay for all this?
The city doesn't pay for it. It's paid for by the stormwater utility of the city of Philadelphia. And
they did that by raising rates?
Well, it's interesting. We've always been, and everyone and every place where you guys are, you're paying for stormwater.
Right.
Right. It's either through your property tax or your condo or through your water or stormwater utility. So you're already paying for stormwater management. And the question is how do you pay for it? And what's your mechanism? And by moving to and this is the important part here, to a parcel-based billing system, meaning that the more impervious cover you have on your property, the more you pay for stormwater management. That gives encouragement to the private landowner to make their land less impervious. And the costs right now for a city of Philadelphia for a resident is about $14 a month for stormwater management. And that's on top of another $60 or so a month for wastewater and drinking water services.
So Howard, if I can ask, if we were to approach our city government about making this project a fruition, would we contact the city or the water department or the state utility office, or what would be the proper approach?
It really depends. It really depends. Clearly, you need an outraged citizenry that's saying that, hey, there's flooding going on, and we need to rethink how we're managing our water systems. And you can take that to any level you want. The stormwater systems and wastewater systems are regulated by the federal government, the EPA. There's also a state regulatory oversight of these systems. There's politics involved. There's the guy who's going to lose his job for raising the stormwater fees, and it takes some energy, and it takes an effort, and it's happening slowly. There are more and more stormwater utilities being formed all over the country, and that's just happening now.
We
And,
have one group that,
Sure.
oh, sorry, Amy, I've interrupted, but we have one group, I think Alexa spoke to them yesterday, and they've started to organize across different parts of Texas with the goal of forming a stormwater utility across multiple jurisdictions.
Yes. A little late for Texas, but yes, when you look at places like Houston and the damage that's happened there, it's once you get to that point, and you have to recognize that Houston did not always have the kind of flooding it has now, but it's a growing metropolis, and more and more impervious cover, and that's you have to think about, like, what's it going to be in 100 years, wherever you are, even if you're in a small town. What's happening, who's developing? Maybe it's a downturn right now and nobody's developing anything, but you got to believe that in the next 50, 100 years, at some point, either civilization ends or there's continued development. And the question is how do you start to capture that and stop the development from happening in a way that damages your water environment?
Howard,
Can I make a suggestion?
I got a lot more slides, but yes, please do.
Yeah, so the question about who you might want to talk to in your city, some cities have resilience managers
Yes.
and sustainability managers, and they may be the people to start with. A lot of cities participated in the 100 Resilient Cities program several
Right.
years ago, and as a result of that, got resilience managers.
Yes.
So you might want to check to see if you have that, resilience and sustainability.
Absolutely, and but you have to realize that a lot of cities that have the sustainability managers, they do not have, everyone loves to have a sustainability resilience manager, but no one wants to give them the power to do things that cost money.
Right.
I would agree.
It's just a sign. It's just a sign of the times. Hopefully, it won't continue, but that's and the 100 Resilient Cities program is great. Hopefully, it's going to continue and continue to supply funding to do this kind of work.
I'm talking to you from Charleston, South Carolina, and we have flooding, and we have a resilience manager, and we have a water company that charges all of us individually stormwater fees. Is that what you're talking about? And they
Yes.
would be the people who would alter all this?
Yeah, if you have a stormwater utility, they're the ones who are going to be overseeing this kind of program, and so you have to take a good look at what the existing program is and work with other folks in the community. I'm sure in Charleston it's been done already to understand how much more it would cost to do more green infrastructure, how much more it would cost to do this, do that, whatever. How fast are they trying to move? One big thing
Very
about all
slowly. Very slowly.
Yeah, I have a slide that I don't have in this deck, but basically it says it took us 150 years to get to this point. It's going to take us 150 years to get out of it. But at some point you have to start, and you can't worry about the losses. When some big strip mall comes in and they don't do stormwater management properly, that's a loss. But you got to realize that the environment's going to outlast that strip mall. And next time that it's built, or whatever's built on it, hopefully there's some earth disturbance requirements that require stormwater management to be put in.
Thank you.
You can't worry about the losses, because we're all in this. If you're in the sustainability resilience business, you're going to have a lot of losses, because that everything costs money and time and is complicated, and people want to do things the way that they've always done them.
Right.
Howard, I have a quick question for you. Are you going to talk about Philadelphia's inner urban rain gardens that they're doing on the sidewalks?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, never mind, then I'll wait.
Okay.
Susan had a question.
Sorry?
How do you get people to start this? Like our city manager, we've just got some beautiful new sidewalks, and I called him and I said, hey, don't fill those sidewalks in beside them. Leave them deep, leave them for rain gardens. Let's change things. No, we're gonna fill them up. He said, how do you get these people to understand that when we're doing something, do it
Right.
now, don't wait until.
It's all about leadership and vision, and if you've ever taken any kind of course in change management, it is one person at a time. And there are a series of events someone goes through and they're doing something different than they've ever done it before. Everyone is, your city manager is sitting there saying, I have a budget, I have a mission, I have a schedule, and and this is what I need to do. And that's the correct position for that person to take. And it takes a long time to change the understanding of people one by one, and it takes demonstration projects. It takes getting people, let's say like myself, to come out and talk to the city folks, but you got to understand it from their perspective. In order to make any change happen, you have to understand who your friends are and who's not your enemies, but who doesn't want to see change. And you got to understand why they don't want to see change and be able to work with that. The other thing is that because the green infrastructure, which hopefully I'll get to show you, is so vast, and there's so many things out there that can be done in so many different places, that when you lose one battle because the city manager or whoever it is doesn't want to do something, and you just move to the next low-hanging fruit and work in that direction, because you know what, that city manager is not always going to be there. And again, this is not a revolution. This is an evolution of your cities. This is thinking about not what are you doing today to prevent flooding. No one's going to be putting enough rain gardens in to prevent flooding tomorrow. You're looking at long-term solutions here. And how do you want to live 100 years from now?
Thank you, Professor Neukrug. I really appreciate what you're doing. It's very exciting to me.
Right.
Also like the international examples. I
Okay.
think that we're in a unique position right now. Surely yesterday was a heartening day for the nation, the world. And I think
Yep.
that we're looking at a sea change at the EPA
Yeah.
and some of the other agencies that could in fact foster collaborations with our localities to
Yes.
provide incentives to move water departments and city governments into the green world. I mean, some of it's happening, you see it happening a little here or there. It's just that this is, doubtlessly it's being discussed right now at EPA anyway. But what we need is to couple it with our local efforts and to identify exact public lands. I like that idea with the public lands first, because we're doing some of that here. And then the private lands for incentives. So we have a pathway that where there are groups, we can work with them, and EPA can provide enough incentives that the cities and the water companies can't turn them down.
Right, and Beth, it's quite interesting. They announced yesterday the new director of the Office of Water for EPA, and it's a good friend of mine, Radhika Fox, who I hired to be the CEO of the U.S. Water Alliance. And if you look up U.S. Water Alliance and you get some of the materials, you can get to see the flavor of this person and the direction that EPA will take. It's very much about equity, and it's very much about doing things in an integrated fashion, what we call it one water fashion, and it's very much very in line with the presentation I'm hopefully going to show you guys. I'll move on to that. You see this? I mean, basically, this just says there's a whole lot of projects that happened in Philadelphia and are still happening. This is March 2019, all the public-private projects that happened are happening in Philadelphia. And this is about a 10-year period. We got really serious about it in about 2012 is when we started doing this as part of a regulatory process. So I talked about the three different, the public projects, the redevelopment, and then this is the development projects. This is private land. You can't afford to do this on your own, but if you get some incentive money from the utility, they're willing to do stormwater management on their site. And the price here came out to about, this just came out, and about 40 green acres at $125,000 per acre. And for those of you who are in more rural areas, that may sound like an awful lot of money, but in a very dense city, it's a pretty incredible low amount of money that these different groups, and you can see under the on the table here, under the project names, this is happening at schools and one credit union and all different kinds of places around the city. And they all have a project manager consultant, meaning somebody's other than the community itself is working on doing the plans and making sure the project happens. So just to give you a sense. And this, I assume everybody on this call knows what stationarity is.
Don't.
Harriet?
No.
No? Okay. Stationarity is the concept that if all things remain the same, over time, you're going to have a normal distributed, if you flip a coin 100 times, you can get 50 heads, 50 tails. And it's this whole concept that if you look back long enough into the history of, let's say, rainfall or drought or temperature in a region, that you're going to be able to find out and you'll be able to calculate what the 100-year drought is and what the 100-year flood is. It's just it's just at the far ends of what's normal, right? And the problem is that something's happening right now, and so stationarity is really about equilibrium. And what we're really seeing is that those probabilities of the 100-year flood, 100-year storm, 100-year drought doesn't really exist anymore. Well, it might exist, but we don't know what it is because the last 20, 30 years, we've been seeing a different trend in from what we've been seeing over a course of 100 years. So we don't really know when we build something, if we're building it for the next 50 years or for the next 1,000 years or what. It makes it very difficult to actually do anything that is long-term. And this is old EPA. This is about 15 years old. I love this quote though. This is the natural system assumptions, the assumptions about weather, upon which we base all water standards, all permits, all water use, how we deliver and collect water from homes and businesses may no longer be valid. Okay. Just a little sentence there, and this is from when EPA believed in climate change, and it was kind of early. This was an early time, so this was like 2005. So this is a pretty cool statement from that point in time. But we're dealing with things that change, and that's why green infrastructure is so nice, because it's incremental. Okay. It's you put in a rain garden, and if it's not enough, you put in another rain garden, and you keep doing that until Gordon, I have your picture came up because you hummed. You got so your picture came up as do you have a thought or a question there?
No, I just had the let me see. Hold on. Oh yeah, I was making sure I was off mute. Just had the impression that all the work maybe that's been done in the past 10, 15 years or 20 years might be all for naught. And so my next question was, if our system is no longer valid, then what would be in the future?
That's in the future is going to come money to because we're gonna survive this, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to have to spend money in order to adapt, because clearly we're not spending money to mitigate.
I have a question. This is Gabriella from New York City. The question is, I'd like to know what Philadelphia is doing to preserve the existing green infrastructure, if anything.
To preserve, you mean once we put it in, what happens
No,
to
no,
it?
what's existing there, forests, wetlands, things like that. That may
Yeah,
still
well,
exist.
we're pretty far gone. We have the largest urban park, 9,000 acres of parkland. A lot of it is forested, and it was pretty much purchased to protect the water supplies for Philadelphia. It's similar to what New York City did, but New York City didn't do it in the city. They did it 100 miles upstream in the Catskills. There's always these initiatives, the Million Tree March or whatever it may be, to get more and more green, reforest our city. That's always going on and continues again at a snail's pace.
And that leads to the conundrum between private and public, because what the city is doing in the public sphere is undone by the private sphere. I'm in Staten Island, which is a borough of New York City, and we're losing our wetlands at a rapid pace in our forests.
I had a slide on Staten Island, and I took it out the blue belts.
Yeah.
And so showing, I know it's you need strong regulation, and you have a lot of people, all the developers and landowners don't want that because it lessens the value of their property. And so it's, so what I always say to most of my folks is that you got to find the person who's willing to lose their job to make this happen. And you got to find the right moment for it to happen.
That's a good quote. That's a good quote.
I mean, it's just what it is. But but the bottom line is this quote: "It's riskier to continue doing business as usual than it is to change."
As far as hi, I'm Joe Tyrone from Staten Island as well.
Oh,
and thank you for this. But as far as you said before, you just said now you have to find that right person. I sort of accidentally found somebody. Just the other day, I think it might have been yesterday or the day before. I'm working with, I had done a lot with the buyouts in Staten Island. So a lot of times people will reach out to me because they're doing some type of research study or whatever. And this guy who's going for his PhD out of the University of Miami, he kind of is picking up something that I had done about a year or two ago, which was advocating for flood disclosure in the real estate industry. So in his studies, he came across a guy in the city council that I didn't even know existed. He's in Bay Ridge, which is right over the Verrazano Bridge.
I grew up.
And he's a councilman. He heads up a new committee called the Committee on Resiliency and Waterfronts.
There you go.
So I didn't even know it existed. So I think a lot of people on this call, if you look at however your city is structured, whether it's council members or however it is, if you look, and you're going to see that probably someone does have that title. And I'm going to reach out to this guy in conjunction with this guy, Steve, who's going for his PhD to kind of bring that up again about the flood disclosure, because it kind of stopped at the mayor's office of resiliency and recovery when a person left there who was trying to advocate with me to introduce legislation for that. But anyway, here's a guy who I had no idea existed, and I bet you he's going to be a very good resource. And then to make him aware of what we're doing here.
One of the hundreds of people that are running for mayor,
Yeah,
Catherine Garcia. I know her because she ran the New York City water system for a while, and she gets it.
What is her name?
Catherine Garcia.
Oh yeah, okay, yep.
She's currently the streets commissioner, I believe, but she's really a great water person and environmentalist, and it's tough.
Great, good.
So, all right. So green cities, clean waters. Okay, this is the city of Philadelphia, and we have this great program and a green plan that in 2009 we said would cost 1.6 billion. Costs a little bit more than that now, but that's what happens in all capital projects. And what we said is that we're going to develop 10,000 of these greened acres. So we're going to take 10,000 acres of impervious cover in the city of Philadelphia, and we're going to manage them so that the water does not go into the sewer. Okay? And that we'll do it in a manner that is green, meaning soft. There are a lot of different ways of doing it. But as you can see, in a built-up city, how do you do 10,000 acres? And but when you look at it and you want to stop flooding and you want to stop these combined sewer overflowing pipes, you really only have three choices. One is make it stop raining so much, which is really up to God and perhaps eventually the Paris Accord. Or you can increase the capacity of the sewer, which is called gray infrastructure, putting more money underground to build bigger and bigger sewers and tunnels and tanks and whatever it may be. Or you can do the green infrastructure approach, which is stop putting rainwater in my sewer, which is the green approach. So if you can delay or prevent water from getting to the sewer, or in other areas where the sewers are not the problem, it's just the flooding that's a problem, how do you keep water localized where it lands during a rainstorm and manage it there rather than allowing it to get into a street or some other impervious cover site where it accumulates and creates a flood. So we used to show this picture of this green roof doghouse, and then imagine if all the dog houses in the US had green roofs on them, how much better our environment would be. But the problem is that where we all live, and it may not be as drastic as this, but everything is built at an incline. Every square foot of any city in the world is built so that water runs off and goes somewhere. In a big city, it always goes to a sewer. Okay? And in a rural area, it might go to, in Texas, it may go to a roadside ditch. And a ditch is basically green infrastructure without the green in it. But it always has to go somewhere. And just to give you the sense of like, oh my gosh, what you have to do is what we're really doing here with green infrastructure is we're changing the slope. We're slowing down the water. We're changing everything about drainage in a city. Big concept for you to be thinking about. And basically keeping the stormwater out of the sewer on the left is the way things run now, which is take the water and dump it down the sewer as quickly as you can. And on the right, this may not look very attractive, but it is stormwater management. It's just it's an ill-conceived design. It wasn't, it's not working the way it was designed to work. But basically, the drain is a little bit higher than the rest of the ground area. So the water is not reaching the storm sewer. And to me, this is great. That's stormwater management. We're managing the water and not having it go into the stream or the sewer. So defining GSI, green stormwater infrastructure, soil, water, plant systems, intercept stormwater through ground infiltration and evaporation, and also provide some kind of co-benefits, economic, social, environmental benefits, and there are a whole bunch of different forms for it. And it sounds like you guys know this already: tree trenches, rain gardens, green roofs, planters. And the biggest problem that we've had over the last decade, and we still have it now, is that we haven't finished innovating how these things should be designed so that they operate correctly, they're attractive, and they have a long life cycle. And for Philadelphia, this is what we call Green Cities, Clean Waters: one water, one city, many places. All different kinds of green infrastructure, and you got to look, as I said before, communities, transit, rivers, streams, parks, schools. If the transit police don't want you anywhere near them with green infrastructure, then go to the parks department, go to the schools department. There's somewhere where you're going to find somebody with some ideas, that's something that they want that fits with what you're trying to do. And you don't have that much money to convert an entire city anyway, so you got to start small and find that low-hanging fruit. And basically what the concept here for Philadelphia is leveraging water for urban sustainability, resilience, and social justice. So getting a stormwater utility to pay for these kinds of projects is all good. Can't hear you. Okay, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a tree trench, and just I'm not going to go into the details of how you design these things, but basically what you're trying to do is manage, let's say, for a lot of the impervious cover in the city is the roads, and the roads all are at a gradient because they're all sending the water down to the edges, and then it's accumulating there. You capture it through a drain, but instead of the drain going to a sewer or somewhere else, it goes into an underground system where it's stored and the water infiltrates. And if there's too much water, then it overflows to this pipe that then takes it back into the old way of doing things, which is the sewer. So when you start looking at these things, you got to look at maintenance. And for a street tree, basically no one owns the street trees, at least in our city. But that's changing now because you're making this infrastructure system to manage the water, stormwater underneath the tree. And that becomes the responsibility of the water utility. You start a new public campaign to get residents to be responsible for the ground level of the tree, basically picking up making sure there's no poop or litter or other things, on the surface, keep things clean. And then whatever agency or whoever in Philadelphia, it's the park system that is responsible for pruning branches and watering the trees. And this becomes really important because now this is a piece of, this tree is infrastructure. It's no longer just a tree. It's infrastructure, and if we can get it to live another 20 years, that's 20 years of deferring, needing to take it out and rebuild the infrastructure piece. Okay. So now I'm going to get to some examples. Salvation Army, putting in a vegetable garden, stormwater management here. This is our zoo. This is doing stormwater management and making the zoo look nicer and more comfortable, and managing stormwater and providing some greenery for the area.
Howard, are you
Yep.
saying that that vegetable gardens in itself was green infrastructure, or that they combine green infrastructure with the vegetable garden?
Well, there are two ways to look at green infrastructure. One is, well, it's not a parking lot, right? You have so when it rains, the water is landing on this site, so you have direct one-to-one management of this, quarter or 1/5 acre of land. So that's stormwater. It's not great, but stormwater management is better than anything else. It has the co-benefits. And what I'm not sure about this, but I would imagine is that the roof drainage from the roof of the building comes and is provided as a water resource for the site.
Right.
So what's really nice is you're taking, let's say this was an acre, and let's say the building was 5 acres. You're taking 5 acres of runoff, and you're taking it and you put it into 1 acre. So you're actually dealing with getting 6 greened acres for 1 acre of management.
Thank you.
Just another example. This is I'm going to show some examples from Penn. This is the old post office parking lot, 24 acres, impervious, and Penn purchased it and made it into, because this was the early days of our stormwater regulations, they needed to manage these 24 green acres and manage the stormwater on here. And they have used a number of different processes to get there. But it's really cool. It's beautiful and becomes something that give back to the community.
Could you say what it is? What is its use? Because it looks as though it might be grass, and I'm correct that grass is.
Yeah,
not
there's some grass. There's some these two areas is astroturf, and the astroturf is designed to collect the water, the rainwater underneath it, and take it over here where there are cisterns underground, where the water is collected and then used for whatever plantings is needed, and a slow release. This area has stormwater management, some rain gardens, some beautiful little areas over here. This is an early picture, so it has the forestry and plantings haven't really developed yet. The parking lot is also built at a slant, where instead of it going to an inlet and going into the sewer and then going out into the river, it goes into these gardens here on the side. There are other stormwater management practices here. I have a list of it if anybody's interested, but I don't know offhand what they are. But all 24 acres is managed.
Thank you.
Another project, this is right nearby that last project. This is called Shoemaker Green, and it's just this beautiful site. It's part of Penn's effort to re-green part of their campus. This is what it looked like. It wasn't so bad. It was tennis courts, but it wasn't managing any water, and they gave up on the tennis courts and used this area for managing the stormwater. And it has everything. As porous pavers. It has it's a stormwater system here. Water comes down from this entire area, comes down here and infiltrates into the ground. This underneath here is a tank, and the tank is basically a slow release tank because there's too much water that it's collecting. So it releases slowly to the sewer. And again, this is because it's a CSO. If it was a flooding location, then it's still storing the water until after the storm, and after the peak of the storm, and runoff from that storm, and managing it and having a slower release. Okay. Up here, subsurface detention basins with the cistern. Bioretention basins, rain garden, permeable paving, tree canopy. So yeah, so it's this was a nice project. I spent a lot of money on this and made it an important part of the campus. This is also right nearby there. This is part of the hospital system of the University of Pennsylvania, and this is this wasn't called Penn Park at the time. This was a very valuable piece of land for parking your car when you're going to visit someone at the hospital. But it was converted to a 100% managed park that's now used by the community, and adds obviously a number of benefits to the community. I'm going to talk about porous pavements and porous pavers and porous cement. And here's the left-hand side is porous cement. Basically, you pour water on it and it comes through, and it's a nice even little drainage underneath, as you can see. And on the right-hand side is porous pavers. These allow the water to infiltrate between the pavers, goes through a stone bed, which keeps everything even, and goes into the ground. I'll skip this for time, but I will note that the top is we have asphalt, we have concrete, we have pavers, we got everything you can imagine that can be made into as a stormwater system. Whether you consider this a green system or not, it's up to you. But there's many different ways to deal with this and to manage the water. This is Shoreview, Minnesota. I only show this because I have no idea why they put porous asphalt, porous concrete on here, because it is interesting though, because they get a lot of snow, and what's nice about porous porous concrete is that there's no freeze thaw because the water doesn't sit on the street. It goes through the pavement and it goes underground. There's some reduction in or increase in temperature during the winter because it's taking the heat of the earth and it's allowing a place for it to escape. So it's potential and does reduce the use of road salt that you need in order to, because you don't get as much snow landing on the streets. These are part of we have at one of our wastewater plants is a number of different types of porous asphalt on the right and porous pavers on the left, and doing real-time testing with us to see how they work and how long they last. This is a basketball court in West Philadelphia. This is before anything was done. I seem to have some timers on here, which is probably good for me. We're taking that basketball court on the upper left of the picture here and managing stormwater on it. Good. I didn't know this slide did this. That's nice. Okay, good. That's what it looks like when it rains. Kids can't play on it. It's kind of messy. It's got a lot of cracks in it because the water gets into a small crack and expands during the winter and causes a bigger crack. Here's our contractors coming in. There's so much to tell you about this. This is our first porous pavement project. This is probably about 10 years ago. And so we didn't know how to design it. The contractor never built anything like this before, so he didn't know what he was doing. They had to close the asphalt. The asphalt manufacturer had to close down because we had to make a different type of asphalt. So got to clean out the system and then have it special for this. And then the asphalt, the contractor needed 3 truckloads of asphalt for this job, but he got 4 because just didn't know, and he was afraid that if he needed that 4th for anything, he didn't want to have to close down the factory again because that would cost him additional money. Our guy out there didn't know how to be an inspector for this, and so we're all watching this project happen. Here it is. One of the it looks just like regular asphalt, except it has no fine grains in it, and the surface level here is very well prepared so that the water can drain through past the asphalt into the ground. The trick here is to only, you can see in the back, one of those rollers, and typically a contractor would go in and roll back and forth and make sure everything's patted down really well. In this case, for porous asphalt, you want to keep the holes open as much as possible, so you only want to do 1 pass if you can. So it gets more complicated, gets more expensive. Is it more expensive because is there something intrinsically more expensive about it? Not really. It's just that it's all new, and nobody wants to do this for the first time. Nobody wants to be responsible for it. I'm going to play this video. Watch carefully, listen. That guy who was screaming just there, he was the contractor. He was like 6 feet, 300 pounds, been doing sewer work his whole life, never seen anything like this, had no idea it would actually, he didn't think it would really work. I'm impressed. He's impressed. Okay. So here's the difference. So you can see porous asphalt versus non-porous asphalt. And this is the result. And there are all these co-benefits that come here because and the biggest one is that when you bounce the ball bounces the same on porous asphalt, but it doesn't have the same kind of noise. So you can put this into a community and not have the loud bouncing of the ball because the sound gets absorbed down into into the asphalt rather than be projected back up into the community.
How much more does it cost than typical asphalt? And is there any studies in terms of how long it lasts before it starts to break up?
It never breaks up.
Okay.
It never breaks up because there's, it works, and it works as far as I could tell for 30, 40 years before, and there's some maintenance that has to be done because you have to make sure that if too much sand gets on it, you want to be able to vacuum it up. But it's, does it cost me? Well, if you had a factory that was making, was shutting down once a week to make porous asphalt because everyone was using it, it would cost the same as the regular asphalt. But if you have to close the factory down to retool just for one project, it costs more money. If the guy knows how to design it, it's cheaper. Guy knows how to build it, it's cheaper. So it's one of those things that when you start doing something like this and you don't have any expertise in your community, it's going to cost a lot of money. Eventually, if and when this catches on, and believe me, it's going to catch on, it actually saves money because of its life cycle. I have another site where the porous asphalt is all perfect like this after 20 years, and then there's this area that's been repatched 3 or 4 times. And that area was had regular asphalt on it because there was an oil tank underneath it, so they didn't want to put the porous asphalt on top of that for contamination reasons. And that area, that became the area where everything looks terrible, and so you can really get the comparison back and forth. Harriet, how am I doing? Because I got a lot more slides. Should I run through them quickly?
Well, so just a minute. We've got 2 questions. One that's come up on here, and it's about the use of. So it was in relation to are the sports fields? Do they receive chemical pesticides, and how do you deal with that as potential pollutants? And then also, are native or indigenous plants being used to maximize water absorption and contribute to the ecosystems?
Both good questions. Both I don't have the answer for that specific site, but both make sense. I certainly hope that they're not using pesticides on the site, and that they are using. And I do know they're using native planting. Yes.
Right. Wonderful. And then just in case other people have to leave, and maybe we should, go on for another 10, 15 minutes, if that's okay with you. But if other people have to leave before then, could you tell us a little bit more about the water center and what you do, just in case,
Oh, sure.
you help some of the cities that our folks are working with?
Well, very much so. I mean, this period of my career was about 15 years, Green Cities, Clean Waters, and in addition to that, running plants and operating utilities and whatever else. So we've taken those kinds of concepts and brought on a team of really expert people to come in and work in different cities and different communities. We have this affordability task force where we're going out workshop where we go out into different areas. It's very easy now because it's all webinar where we have 5 expert utility peers and meet with the utility folks and go through how to reduce costs for utility, which includes lesson in green infrastructure, lessons in what to do with people who can't afford to pay their water bill. So we have workshops like that. We're working in Pittsburgh where we're developing an entire watershed management plan for the southwestern region of Pennsylvania, where we're bringing stakeholders together and creating a stakeholder initiative out there for the 3 rivers. In Philadelphia, we're doing projects like looking at the Delaware River, the stretch that's urbanized and industrialized, and trying to determine if and when the river will be swimmable. Uh, so we're doing a whole bunch of different kinds of projects and having a lot of fun with them. And we'd love to work with anybody who's on this call. We are a nonprofit, so we need funding, but we'll be happy to work with someone to identify funding sources.
And so something that we've discussed just on our chat session during this is, if some of our leaders are able to identify sympathetic politicians, elected leaders, and or officials, would you be, and maybe we could had another call like this where it was but presumably it was a presentation and then even more of their questions and our folks would stay quiet. Is that something that you might be willing to consider?
Yeah, sure. I'd consider that. And, again, time is valuable, but yeah, I'm happy to consider doing that and very happy to see this kind of program move forward.
Wonderful. Okay, lovely. So everyone go find some sympathetic officials and
you don't have to be so sympathetic. I've given that kind of talk quite frequently in different places. And one person said, if you do this, then when the storms come, there's not going to be enough water to wash the silt down, which is what the sewers rely on a big storm to push everything down to the wastewater plant or to the river. And I looked at him and I said, really? You think I'm going to be that successful to empty out to not have any water going to the sewer? That's not the goal here. Yeah, so a lot of people who need to understand and be sensitized to what is an issue and what isn't an issue.
Has Philadelphia reduced its flooding, actually?
Well, we don't know. How do you know that?
The people who live there will tell you. The people
but we have good records of everybody who complains and where it is, and we know where it is. A lot of that's going to have to be fortified. The green infrastructure is nice, but there's a whole bunch of things that need to be done. And the causes for the flooding need to be understood, whether it's a infrastructure failure, maybe at a turn of a sewer that needs to be straightened out, or too much, or the demand on the sewer is just too much, and we need to increase capacity or reduce demand, which means green infrastructure. But it's really hard to measure. We measure it through computer models, H&H models, hydraulics and hydrology, where we measure the rainfall, we measure the runoff speed, we measure the volume and the level in the sewer system, and then we measure the river. So it's all done with models that are calibrated over time. And so we can show that we're going from a point where 63%, 64% of all the rainfall goes through our sewers and out into the rivers, which is not what we want. And at the end of our 25-year cycle, we should have 85% of our water captured in our combined sewer system. Here's a great example. Percy Street, see that on the left, that's what it looked like. This center is what it looked like after we put in porous pavement. And on the right, you can see what happens to the stormwater. The street doesn't get flooded, but the rest of the unchanged asphalt gets the same flooding that it used to get. This is one of our first projects. This is Sailor's Grove. Basically, you can't really tell here, but it's a large triangle that is a park that needed to be redeveloped, and this is what it looks like now as a wetland in the city, and created a park here. Beautiful, beautiful site, and this is about 15 years old, so it's lasted well. Green roof retrofit Pico building. Pico is our electric utility. They wanted to do something, so they retrofitted this with indigenous plants. This is our library. This is our main branch for the library. Green roof. Get a picture of the different kinds of plantings that are used here. This is a really cool project. This is a private development project. Underneath this green roof is a 8-story parking lot, and this site was made into a beautiful park that's accessible to the public, and it has not only a green roof, but is a blue-green roof because it captures the excess stormwater and holds it until the green roof portion has time to deal with its ingest its first meal before it gets its second meal from the stored water. Global water leaders. This is so this now it's looking more into the world and seeing what other people are doing, and the water industry is very close. We have great networking, and you know, and we all know about the Netherlands and their problems and their dikes that they have, and all the major flooding events which are shown here from 1400 before through 1916, and then again in 1953 is the flood that they're still trying to recover from today. And the dike master of Delft said to me, "We raise the dikes another meter, and the coming catastrophe will be that much bigger." So the idea is that no matter what you do, nature's going to win in the end. And room for the river. Here, I'll show you the picture of the river will run through the city instead of along the city. This is the Wall River.
Maggie's looking at something out of the house here. Oops.
Oh, okay. This is Singapore. This is my friend Peter Ng, who runs the Singapore water system. And I asked him, what makes you so innovative? And he said, Howard, if you had no water, you'd be innovative also, which is, you know, you need something done, you get it done. You can spend the money, you find the money. So finding that connection with the leader who understands that. And this is some pictures of their stormwater management systems. And you know, land is very precious in Singapore, but so is parkland and stormwater management systems. And this is a stormwater park built specifically for managing the stormwater. Here's another section, the old way, 2008, of conveying stormwater away from the city, and 2012, more green way of doing it. This is the same area during a storm event. See what it looks like, and then after the storm event, everything dries out, and you got people who are enjoying the area. This again is Singapore stormwater management field with lots of green plantings. This is Rotterdam, and this is a this little basketball court that you see here. This is a stormwater retention system that doubles as a park. So, you know, when you're in the city, you don't have a lot of land. You can't have those beautiful big stormwater retention basins. This is in Copenhagen, same kind of idea. This is a hockey field that is fine when kids are playing, gives a place for kids to play, but when it rains, it doubles as a stormwater system. This is just reservoirs. You know, water systems have lots of reservoirs. This is using those reservoirs as places to put floating photovoltaic systems, panels in Hong Kong. Yeah. In Los Angeles, they need to cover their reservoir for a number of health reasons, and they got these little balls. They got 96 million of them, and laid them down and covered the basin that way. So it prevents sunlight from getting in. It stops the birds can't poop into the water, and it's a great process that seems to have worked really well. This is Philadelphia. This is an old reservoir we had, which is now part of a bird sanctuary. This is Amsterdam. This is how they do green roofs. Underneath this is water storage, so they manage the water from this area and obviously use it as an outdoor space. Oh. This is, you know, I had this slide and I don't know where this is. I guess that it's Singapore, where green roofs and these are extensive or intensive green roofs where you actually have trees growing. This is back in Rotterdam, just to give you an idea of how they're thinking about their city and how, you know, this is artist rendering, but gives you an idea of how you really green a city and use green infrastructure, manage stormwater, and make a place where people want to live and play. This is more from Rotterdam. Here you got you got trees growing in buoys in the middle of the bay, and with the tree roots growing down into the water. This is Philadelphia. This is a creek that we daylighted. It was actually, the creek had been buried in a sewer, and we brought it back to the surface and built this creek that you see in the lower right, and brought nature back to the middle of the city. This is where is this? This is Italy, and Italy and Vienna, with you know, trees growing off of buildings. This is sort of like where I showed Shoemaker Green in Philadelphia. This is a underground. This area here is a green roof, basically, with, I'm not sure what's underground there, but this is in Portugal, and obviously making great use of land for business or parking underneath, and for recreation on top, and providing the climate change mitigation and adaptation. Green walls, which don't do as much as other things for green infrastructure, for stormwater management, but do some, and are really pretty, and just add to the environment. This is Philadelphia. We have a living wall in one of our federal buildings. This I just threw in here. This is a company called Plenty that's using the wall system to grow plants for food, and using very little water in order to do this. Philadelphia, Schuylkill Center, playground, managing stormwater from the roofs and providing lessons. This is a school in Philadelphia, and you can see the imagined way of stormwater management just coming from the roof leaders that are shaped like the meandering streams, and a rain garden at the bottom of it, all for education and just aesthetics. This is where is this? This is in Connecticut. This is a water purification plant, meaning a sewer plant that is all natural, and shows how you can do this. And you know, you can't do this in the middle of a city, but you can do this you know, at the edge of a city. I love this. This is a waste to energy plant in Copenhagen, and this green roof is doubled use as a ski slope during the winter. This is just so you know, it's nothing magical about stormwater management. You know, so here's a Heaton Hall in Manchester, and the stormwater lands on the grass. It infiltrates. You have this brick wall here, so you need to have these this area for water to seep out, and then it's built at this. You got this little swale here, so it's managing the water to bring it down here, slowing down the water, just very simple design. And I can't believe I got through all these slides. This is from Denmark. This is 1853. They were really big on water supply. In the turn of the 19th and 20th century, they're public health protection from drinking water. And now they're working on environmental health protection, which means the rivers and streams. And the question is, what's next? And basically, it's moving towards all these sustainable goals for the of the United Nations, and how do we move forward to provide high quality water. So that's it. I got through it. I hate to tell you that was like 100 slides, but
Thank you.
we did it.
Yeah, so if you want to stop sharing, I think we've got 5 minutes for any remaining questions. I know that Donna had a question. I think it was about had there been any studies on the length of time that porous asphalt remains porous, considering silt filling in porous spaces?
How long porous? I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. Didn't hear you.
Sorry, have there been any studies on the length of time that porous asphalt remains porous, considering silt filling in porous spaces?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff, and it kind of lasts 40 years, 50 years. We haven't really, we have our first porous asphalt was in a parking lot at an arboretum, and that was built in the late 1980s, and they just rebuilt it. We took off the asphalt and put new asphalt down, and went through a few hurricanes, and it just keeps working. That now we know better about how to maintain them. So again, the issue is silt landing on the site and causing the pores to block up.
Wonderful. Suzanne, you were the person who prompted this, so we'll let you have maybe the last question before we. So it was Suzanne who said, we need the expert on green infrastructure. So,
Hi, Howard. I'm in Ocean City, New Jersey, and we tried the pervious asphalt here, and our city's response was that it can't be plowed because the plows have to be like an inch or two off the asphalt. Has that changed over time? Is there something that's good for our climate in the Northeast that still is pervious?
Well, the reason that they can't plow it is because they only have one street that's maybe a mile long. So, they have to have a special truck with a person who understands how it works and knows where it is and does that every time that it snows. Mm-hmm. So that's why it doesn't work. But if you have entire area has porous pavement, then you know how to do it. Mm-hmm. It's just plowing. It's just, you just have to plow up another couple inches. You're in that place where you're doing change management. You're getting people to think differently, and they don't want to.
In a sandy environment, is it not practical for a sandy environment?
Good question. It probably would be better to use other forms. It's probably not the least expensive way for you to manage stormwater runoff. And don't forget that when you have a street, let's say 40 feet wide, you don't make the whole street porous pavement. You only make the two edges porous pavement because the water is flowing sheet flow from the apex, the top of the center of the street, down to the side. So you're only doing, you'd only want to do smaller pieces because they could, it can handle. We initially designed porous asphalt for a 10-to-1 loading ratio, meaning for 1 acre of porous asphalt, you can put 10 acres of water runoff onto that. But I think, you can't quote me on the number, but I think you're like orders of magnitude higher on how much this stuff can last. So, you know, when you talk about sand, you can get an awful lot of sand in there before you start reaching a point where it's not meeting the design levels that you have for the site.
Thank you. So I'm going to stop this now. Oh, Carmen, do you want to just do your last, and then we'll have to stop? Oh, we can't. You're mute.
Thank you for your presentation, Howard. And this is a different question. We and some of the people on this call in Northwest Florida are faced with an assault on the aquifer that supplies 100,000 residents. Business interests on our county commission have made this happen with dirt mining in that area, and they want to open it up and expand development. Do you recommend we talk to anyone that can help guide us on how to fight this back? They've now pulled the Trump card and pulled the state senator into it.
Okay. I'm just getting used to the word Trump card. So, but you know, it's really hard to change things once they start. Once somebody has the plans developed, you know, and they're ready to go and they've lined up the money, you know, you can lie down in front of the bulldozer, but you know, the trick here is, again, this is all long term. You can't worry about the losses because the long term objective is to get out there and change the rules.
And
Okay,
everyone. This is a protected area. It's a wellfield protection overlay district, and they're wanting to change the language in our Bible, the comprehensive plan. Is there someone you would direct us to just to get some consulting information or some guidance?
I'm not sure. You can send me an email on it, and I'll take a look at it a little bit more closely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Harriet, it's Susan Milliken.
Yes, I don't think we can take any more questions,
Well,
Susan.
it's not a question. I just wanted to let everyone know that we did get a climate change resolution passed in our little town on a sea island outside the city of Charleston. I will send everyone a link to that actual resolution, but it speaks specifically to the bioretention of stormwater. And so in the upcoming budget discussions, we will be talking about renewable energy and all of these, you know, green stormwater management. So I would urge everyone to go to your local government and urge them to pass a climate change resolution. This went through several revisions, and what really pulled it over to passage was high schoolers and college students who pushed so hard for this.
Wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations and fantastic. Thanks everyone so much for being on the call. Really, really appreciate. Lovely to see you all. And thank you, Howard. Really appreciate
sure. Thank you. You're a good audience. You let me get through 100 slides.
Yay.
Thank you.